Your powers for evil.
Evil? Your evil is my good. I am Sutekh the Destroyer. Where I tread, I leave nothing but dust and darkness. I find that good.
Then I curse you, Sutekh. In the name of all nature, you are a twisted abhorrence.
Any further insolence, Doctor, and I shall shred your nervous system into 1,000,000 fibers. Is that understood?
Hello and welcome to Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast with me, Matthew, and as always, I am joined with...
Yes, this is Scott, and this is an episode Matthew hates so much he had to escape the country just to not talk about it for a week.
Yeah, I was like, you know what, Sutekh makes me just unbelievably furious with how dull he is that I need to take a week holiday and go to Switzerland for a while. And I did that, and it was wonderful, but that's why this episode is a week late, because Scott refused to record the whole time. I was
sure,
like, Scott,
yes.
let's record, you know. He was like, nope, you're on holiday, can't do it. Can only record when we're in the same country. And so that was why there was a little wee break, but I think it was a needed week break.
Yes.
I very much enjoyed my holiday away. It felt nice to not do anything for once. Usually I'm doing a million things every single day, and then suddenly I had nothing to do. And it felt weird. It felt very strange to not have anything to do. But I was told as a sign that it was a needed break. So that's good. But we're back, and we're back talking about Doctor Who, and we are back talking about the Pyramids of Mars, a story that I dislike. And we are covering parts 3 and 4 this week. So if you want to know what we think about the opening 2 parts, go back and listen to the last episode, Does Sutekh Suck? Spoilers, yes. And we will get into more of that this week.
We got a comment from somebody who clearly didn't watch the video, right?
Yeah.
We complained about Russell T Davies or something.
They said, no, Sutekh doesn't suck, Russell T Davis's writing sucks. To which, to them I say, go back and watch this episode, because this writing also sucks. But speaking of the writing, Scott, you said that you have got some things to chat about with Pyramids of Mars.
This is actually more about... This is more about the director, who also co-wrote the episode, so I guess it is about direction. So the director of this episode is, of course, Paddy Russell, and she was one of the very first BBC female directors, which is something we're going to talk about, because, you know, it's a thing that needed to be addressed. She was known for speaking her mind and pushing back against demands from the producers and all that. She was born in 1928. She went to drama school in the early 50s, where she was spotted by Michael Barry, who was the head of drama before Sidney Newman took over the role. Of course, Sidney Newman is a man who commissioned Doctor Who in the first place, played brilliantly by Brian Cox in An Adventure in Space and Time. She did 3 shows before she deciding that she wanted to work behind the scenes of the camera rather than in front of the camera, and she quickly started work as the first female floor manager at the BBC. She worked on famous shows like Quatermass and the 1954 adaptation of 1984. So the 1954 adaptation of 1984. That's a confusing thing to say.
Yeah, sure. If dates are hard.
She did find it to be a tough task. In her own words, she said, "Nobody believed a woman could control the floor like a man could." And she also says that she had a superior that just absolutely hated her because he was a misogynist. And you know, of course, it's the 1950s.
As was the style at the time, yeah.
Oh, wonderful time for a female director to be trying to break in, you know? Great time. So around 1962 to 1964, she really wanted to become a director. She applied 3 times to become one, but the BBC kept on refusing her. On the 3rd time, she stormed into Sidney Newman's office, and she said she would resign if she wasn't accepted to this directing school. And Sidney Newman basically replied, okay, bring me a letter tomorrow morning and I'll know you mean it. If you bring me a letter of your resignation, I'll know you mean it. So she came back the next morning with a resignation letter, and Newman immediately gave her a 3-month contract. What a curious guy this Sidney Newman is.
That's I think unnecessarily dramatic.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, quit your job. Show me that you were really gonna quit. Do it. Actually, you're promoted. Well done.
Sidney Newman, what a character.
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
She was the 2nd woman director at the BBC, with the first being Julia Smith. That's just terrible. You know, it's 1962. The BBC has been around for how long? You know.
Yeah, but
terrible.
Women were just invented, so it was like they were still a new thing. People were getting used to them.
Her first directing job at the BBC was for a soap opera called Compact. Never fucking heard of this in my life. Around this time, she was also considered to direct the Doctor Who story, The Edge of Destruction, which is the 3rd Doctor Who story where we're stuck inside the TARDIS and we all go completely mad, and Susan is running around with scissors, and William Hartnell has a head bandage on. That really weird episode.
Running with
Do you have
scissors.
any recollection of this one?
I the running with scissors thing sounds familiar. It's been so long since I watched a Hartnell episode though. Like it's been a minute.
It's a one directly after the Daleks, so
right,
a really early one.
That was a really long time ago. I watched that episode then.
But she wouldn't direct the show itself for another 3 years with the massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve. Sorry. She says that William Hartnell had never worked with a female director before, but Paddy Russell believes that because he had a close relationship with Verity Lambert, we've seen in the biopic, he had softened a little bit. This is her words here. He expected a woman to know her job and do it, and when it turned out I did know my job and could do it, that was that. So working with William Hartnell was quite good. You know, can't complain.
Maybe he was, a bit of a sexist and whatnot, but he was still a professional. So that's, I guess he was more professional than he was sexist. So that's good.
Yes, of course, he was a sexist. He was debatably, anti-Semite. He was a racist, according to some people.
He was a kooky guy. He was a character.
To be fair, he was born in the very early.
He was like a million
20th
years.
century,
No, sorry.
Yeah.
I always think he's like a million years old, but he was like 50.
He was born in like 1910 or whatever. That's insane.
Yeah.
He went through 2 wars.
Yeah, Jesus.
So she wound up working consistently on shows like Z-Cars and Late Night Horror before returning to the show again in 1974 with The Invasion of the Dinosaurs. The only story in the Pertwee run to be directed by a woman. 5 seasons. 1 female director. And then she would also be the only female director to work with Tom Baker. 7 years. One female director.
Yeah, that's more crazy because Tom Baker was the Doctor forever. You know, like there's no excuse there. That's insane.
John Pertwee's 5 years plus Tom Baker's 7 years, 12 years, 1 female director. Shocking.
And it's the same
fucking
person.
Shocking. Yes. So she did 2 stories, Pyramids of Mars, obviously, and Horror of Fang Rock. So only 6 stories in the first 18 seasons of the show were directed by a woman. Julia Smith directed 2 and Paddy Russell directed 4. That's 26 out of 553 episodes to be directed by a woman. 26.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's insane.
In the first
Yeah.
18 years of a show. That's be a majority of classic Doctor Who.
Well, I don't.
It-
I just kind of. I'm just. It's trying to combat like ingrained sexism, and if you go back to that time, it's essentially a different reality. Like the world would be so alien if we were to get into our own TARDIS and travel back. Then we would come out into a place wholly unfamiliar. But I just can't even like grasp the idea of you're making a show that you want to appeal to children of all ages and all genders. Like surely having different perspectives in the creative process would assist you, especially when you have to make so many episodes.
And it's even weirder because, of course, as we've seen, in the Doctor Who biopic, The Adventures in Space and Time, the show was essentially started by a Jewish woman, for the first 3 years, and the fact that nobody female ever received like a higher up position in the show, really, aside from these two women in the first 18 years of the show. And the thing is, it's not even that much better in the modern era, because the first episode to be directed by a woman in the modern era was Blink, and that's the back half of season 3 of the modern era. It took 2.5 seasons in the modern era for a female director to come in. So fucking weird.
I don't know. It's strange, isn't it? It is bizarre.
So on working with Tom Baker in Pyramids of Mars, she found him to be tricksy, but the second time she found him to be very tiresome. A lot of people have bad experiences working with Tom Baker, mainly due to his mental health issues. He did come out as saying he was bipolar. He later found out he was bipolar, so I think it does explain why he was so very hard to work with sometimes. So at this time, Tom Baker had no fixed address, and the only way you can contact him with, he had no agent as well. So he had no agent, no fixed address, impossible to contact the man. So there's one day where they needed to change the schedule because somebody was sick. So the only way she could think of reaching him was to try Waterloo Station, and hold him below. He was at Waterloo Station, ready to pick up the call, which is kind of insane.
It reminds me of Bill Murray. Like getting script to Bill Murray or whatever is you have to like phone up a random number and leave a message, and if he likes it, then he'll phone you back.
Oh god, yeah, they're both kind of like Bigfoot figures, aren't they?
Yeah.
So after our time with Doctor Who, she continued a really strong career directing things like the Omega Factor and episodes of Emmerdale Farm. Her last credit on IMDb is for Pick of the Week in 1992, and she died at the age of 89 in 2017. So a good life, I would say.
Yeah.
Often we talk about people in Doctor Who, like Douglas Adams, who died 40 years
50.
old.
Yeah. Everyone dies really young if they work on Doctor Who. It's a curse.
But yeah, you want to jump into episode 3 of Pyramids of Mars?
Not massively, but yes.
Or Pyramid of Mars, as people keep on saying throughout this episode for some reason. I never understand that.
Also, we never go to Mars. Like not once. Not even like a little bit. I guess maybe the Sutekh stuff is technically in Mars. I guess, but
it's all interiors.
Fucking might as well not be.
But yeah, so let's jump into this.
Projected. You will seek out and destroy my enemies. The alien who dares to intrude, the humans, animals, birds, fish, reptiles. All life is my enemy. All life shall perish under the reign of Sutekh the Destroyer.
So, episode 3 of Pyramids of Mars begins. If you remember where episode 2 left us, Sarah Jane was about to be bludgeoned to death by a giant robot mummy. And they solved that problem by telling them to
mummy
fuck
does
off.
the mummy does a karate
misses.
chop on the machine. There's a lot of karate chopping mummies in this episode. He's like Buzz Lightyear.
Which I'm all for. I think more things should have mummies doing karate chops. Karate chops! Side note, when was the last time we saw a karate chop on media? It's been I couldn't it's been a long time. The karate chop needs to come back. The karate chop
Karate needs to come back. Aside from Cobra Kai, which I still need
Well,
to
there's the
watch
Karate
this
Kid
current
movie
season.
coming out.
True. God, there's. I was supposed to be out by now, wasn't it? It was supposed to be out in like
maybe it got
November or something.
Maybe it got delayed by the writer's strike.
It got super delayed.
But
yeah.
my favorite bit was when they were like, "We're doing an open call," and they cast some like producer's kid.
Yeah, I am very curious about this movie. So Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio together at long last. Everybody's been asking for it, you know.
I hope it's about multiple dimensions. I hope it's a multiverse movie. But anyway, they get rid of the robots and go back to see the machine, and they're like, "Hey, the machine is broken." And your brother, because there's Mustache Man here with them, who's the brother of the guy that's possessed by the servant of Sutekh or Sutekh himself.
No, he
they're
is Sutekh's servant. He is possessed by Sutekh.
Yeah.
It's
It's so he's Sutekh's servant possessed by Sutekh talking to Sutekh.
Yeah, it's more like a mind control thing rather than
Okay,
possession.
yeah.
He's not himself.
He's like brainwashed. He's like yeah. But anyway, they're like, "Hey, your brother isn't your brother anymore. He's like full on possessed." And then they decide that they need to go and run around the woods for a bit.
Of course,
they just leave the brother here.
It's fucking classic Doctor Who. They have to start off in this cottage, run away from the cottage, come back to the cottage when they've run away to like a shed. It's just point A to B to C to B to C to B to A. You know, it's classic Doctor Who. Just they only have 3 sets in a garden to work with here.
They do, and they do their best with it. It's I just feel like, you know, we talked last week about the issues that this script had in getting made, and I feel like you really feel it because there's like no plot. There's like nothing going on for these 4 episodes, and they are just and you can feel it when Classic Who is padding because they're really bad at padding. So they're just like, and they just walk, fuck it, or they'll just do something that doesn't matter. Who cares? And that is what all 4 of these episodes are. Like maybe you'll get a good scene here or there with Sutekh and the Doctor towards the end, or just with Sutekh and his general aura. But for the most part, it's like, ooh, let's go through the woods. Ooh, let's go through this big house. And it is
could you imagine if they just, you know, used their padding time to build these characters, focusing on the Doctor's lack of humanity, focusing on the relationship between these 2 brothers, so we give a shit when the younger brother dies, you know? Instead
that would work, and that would be really cool and good, but like the only way for that to happen is if it is a competent script.
Yes.
Like, you know, things live and die at the script. That's the start, and it's the one of the most important parts. If you don't have a good script, you're not going to have a good final product, no matter how much effort you put into it.
True, yeah. Of course,
you know.
in this scene, we have Sutekh talking to the possessed Scarman brother. And the first shot is kind of weirdly cut up, where it's like it's basically just the same camera angle but cut off slightly.
Yeah,
this is because the effects are done live. You know, the possessed brother is done by camera 1, whereas the shot over Sutekh's shoulder is done by camera 2, and it's just like, or is it, he's looking at the green screen cube on the wall, and well, it's not. It's a yellow screen actually, because it's CSO, and we couldn't use blue because the TARDIS is blue, so we had to use yellow instead, which is very interesting. It's like pretty much the only production that I can think of that does yellow screen instead of blue screen or green screen. It's interesting.
Yeah. I feel like yellow is probably really hard to work with as well.
Yes.
Because like the whole reason why you use a green screen or a blue screen is those are the colors that like aren't in human skin really at all. So you can get away and cut and not lose anything. But I feel like yellow, like you're gonna get, especially everyone's smoking. They're gonna have yellow fingertips. They're gonna have yellow tongues. Like, well, maybe it was like a green screen and it wasn't by the end of the day. You know.
But yeah, every effect in this story is done live, essentially. Done live in the studio, which is fucking insane to think about. You know, a special effects heavy show like Doctor Who done live. And it's also done in the same amount of time as any other BBC show around this time. You know, like a weekly 25-minute drama. Same amount of time in the studio, which is insane to think about. You would think Doctor Who would have more time in the studio to allow for more special effects. That's why a lot of the special effects are done in such a way that's bad, let's say.
The thing that is always, I think, endearing with classic Who is the fact that it was essentially live theater. You know, like it's played out like acted like live theater, but it's filmed like live theater. You know, it's a multicam setup. We're gonna do this in one take, so let's fucking get it right, please, and go. And I cannot imagine the stress that would bring. And it's one of the things that makes me be like, okay, I won't be as hard on you as if this was a single cam production and you had like a huge big budget and, you know, Disney were backing you and you had this huge new streaming deal and you were building up into this huge storyline that you had set up. I'm not pulling from any recent examples. That's just, you know, from the top of my head. But, you know, there's a charm. There is a charm to classic Who. For sure.
It's a charm that's hard to talk about in like an analytical kind of way as we do here. It's more of like a passive kind of charm where you're just watching it, eating your pizza dinner, you know?
Yeah.
You're eating your pizza, you're having a good time watching silly Doctor Who, whereas we're sitting here watching classic Doctor Who with a 2024 lens and thinking, oh, this is slow. That special effect was terrible. You know?
Yeah. Which I could be like, bad special effects don't really bother me so much. Like I can deal with the bad special effects. I have a friend, Sean, who I have a gaming channel with, Psychedelic Gaming Hobos, and bad special effects they just ruin things for him. Where if something has got mediocre to bad CGI, that instantly is like a bad movie. It's like, that CGI was shit. It just ruins the illusion and the immersion, I guess, for him. Whereas for me, it kind of adds to it. I kind of like a bad effect every now and then.
Yeah, you need something to laugh at every now and again, you know?
Yeah. We get a scene with Tom Baker walking for a long time through a back garden, and he slowly peers his head round a fence to see a very small little white pyramid, which is explained to us can fly and is a rocket or a spaceship.
Yeah, it's some kind of rocket that can go to Mars and blah 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 blah. This prop apparently kept him blown away in the wind, so it's another nightmare to deal with on location.
Why do we need a rocket to go to Mars? Because Sutekh comes through the door in the house, doesn't he? Like, that's what the vortex is, the time vortex. That's where Sutekh comes out of and comes in. So
it's an Osiren a war missile, and it's almost complete by the looks of it. So it's more of a missile, I guess.
Okay.
And it transposes with its projection pyramid power, which doesn't.
That means nothing.
That's
That means
just-
absolutely nothing.
Just
It's
a word salad.
it's just a thing they're doing. They're just doing something for the fucking sake of doing something.
It's like fucking picking up a Marvel comic from the 1960s written by Stan Lee. Oh, this guy can hypnotize people using magnets. How? I don't fucking know. Stan Lee, if you ever pick up a 1960s Marvel comic, everything is about magnets for some reason. Magnets, bitch.
Magnets, how do they work? Tom Baker makes his way back to the house he just left and says that Sutekh, must be planning on doing something with the robots and building things, and there must be a way to wherever he is out in the woods. So they leave again. Why did they come back? Who knows? Just fill time?
The professor needs to tell him, oh, wouldn't it be less risky to just blow up the pyramid? And the doctor's like, no, there must be some other option. And then the doctor starts muttering, which was added by Tom Baker. And then suddenly the doctor's like, hey, wait, what did you say? he just needed to go back into the house and be told by this guy, this pretty 7-year-old guy, which is insane to think about. He looks like he's in his
He
mid-50s.
looks 55. Yeah. If I look like that when I'm 37, I might like.
But yeah, they're now trying to figure out a way to blow up the pyramid. The fucking guy tells him about, the hunter. I heard the hunter fishing with gelinite the other night, which is obviously which is a process where you detonate the gelinite in water and you collect the dead fish. Have you ever been fishing?
I have, yes. When I was a kid.
How many times?
I don't know how many times. Maybe more than 5. Less.
Oh wow.
Maybe more than 5. Less than 15. Somewhere around there. So I grew up and still live in the countryside of rural Scotland. So I've been hunting. I've been fishing. I've done it all, and now I'm a vegetarian. So.
Nice. I went fishing once with my dad. I must have been about 4 years old, and I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. Eventually, my dad catches a fish, and it's lying there on the ground, and it's flapping around. Freaks me the fuck out. I start crying. Then my dad's like, I'm never taking you fishing again. He just freaked the fuck out. Never again. So
Fair.
That's my one experience fishing. Just completely freaked out by the fish.
I don't think I ever caught anything. I was not very good at fishing.
Yeah.
was not a talent of mine.
Even in my head, I have no idea how the fuck a fishing rod even works, to be honest with you. I know that sounds stupid, but if you go to 4 minutes 30 seconds of this episode, the mummy is just bent over, like it just wants to be fucked in the ass. Just bent over the couch.
4 minutes. Yeah, it's more 4 minutes 37 on mine, but yeah,
Okay,
it is ready for a good time with the brother. As we then cut away, which interestingly, he kind of goes over to it and touches its shoulder, and one of the next times we see it is it's undressed. So I'm just saying, yeah. The doctor and Sarah Jane run through the very green woods. This was very much in the middle of summer, start of spring, end of spring.
Yeah, which is still Mick Jagger's house. I think this was filmed in like March, April, May, roughly around that time. So yeah,
some of the trees are still missing leaves, so it feels like it's early spring, mid-spring maybe. At the time of recording this, which is on the Wednesday before it comes out, autumn has just happened, and I don't know about you, but holy shit, the amount of leaves that have just instantly fallen everywhere around me. Overnight, just suddenly it's like, okay, autumn's here and it's done. Winter now.
Oh, fucking Scottish weather / Aberdeen weather in general is just like you have 3 seasons in one day sometimes. It's insane.
I don't know about what it was like in Aberdeen, but we had a month's worth of rain yesterday.
Same, yeah. I had to walk to work in it.
I had to walk 5 miles in it.
I had to walk 25 minutes. No way.
And it was brutal, but yeah, it was a lot of rain. Lovely. It was great. It was my first day back at work from getting back from lovely sunny Switzerland, and it was like awesome. 5-mile walk in the rain. Brilliant.
It doesn't sound fun.
It's all right. The the Doctor and Sarah Jane are looking for the force field barrier wall thing that we saw the guy walk into last week. They find it pretty quickly and immediately go looking for a doorway, which they also find pretty quickly, which is like this weird little urn thing, and then very slowly they break into it.
The Doctor fucking uses his sonic screwdriver to break into it, which, if you remember last week at the very beginning of episode 1, the Doctor was trying to pick a lock. Why didn't he use it? It's interesting how many times a screwdriver is used in the classic series, because it's hardly ever for opening doors. It's like the writers always forget about the screwdrivers for some reason. It's so bizarre. Whereas now it's used probably like 5 times per episode, I would say. Fucking insane. Whereas in the classic series, it's probably used like 5 times per season.
Yeah. I feel like the sonic screwdriver is just a perpetual problem in Doctor Who, because it's either, like, once you've introduced it, it's either, why are you not using this all the time, or you're using this all the time, please stop. And there's not really a middle ground, because it is a magic wand. And I still don't fully know how I feel about the 60th anniversary Sonic literally being a magic wand, and, you know, building force fields and being a projector and all that shenanigans.
Which is so bizarre that we haven't seen it being a projector ever since. They brought in a new screwdriver just for 3 episodes. That's insane to me.
Yeah.
So weird.
And now we have the new screwdriver, which I definitely don't like. But also doesn't really do much either. Like, the Doctor uses it as like an MP3 player.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sonic screwdriver, I've never had a big problem with it. It's always it's just been like a thing in Doctor Who. You know, since I've watched Doctor Who, there's been a sonic screwdriver. I'm sure the same is for you. So it's just one of those things that I'm like, yeah, it's just Doctor Who, whatever. But it's just a problem that has no answer. You know.
I mean, for the last 5 or 6 years of the classic series, the sonic screwdriver got destroyed, and it was never brought up again. You know, the Doctor was now a man of science. He invented these devices to get through doors and shit, you know, which is how I think it should be. The Doctor needs to use his scientific abilities more.
But
Instead,
he uses his
relying-
scientific abilities to make this instant Omni device that works on everything. I don't know. It's just one of those, you know, damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of little things. But I think it falls into the same category for me as like the TARDIS, where it's like, you know, hey, this is a time machine. You have a time machine right now. Why aren't you using this time machine to your advantage? You have a time machine. And, you know, where it's like, okay, I just have to put this to the back of my mind and suspend my disbelief to allow this story to work. Otherwise, the whole thing falls apart.
I mean, that's never something I think about, the fact that, you know, the Doctor could just pop into his time machine and he could just sit there for like 7 hours, think of a plan, and then go back in time 7 hours to like
he could go into his time machine and get like a big gun, come back out a second later and be like, I have a big gun now. Like, you know, like there's a million like solutions you can come up with when you're like, oh yeah, but I have a time machine though. Like where it's like I can be gone for half a second and get whatever I need. Like,
Doctor Who is kind of an insane show if you just stop to think about it. The fact
it doesn't
it's
make
been
any
going
sense
on for 60
Yeah.
years now, and there's all these different paths, like timeline paths, and like the Earth got destroyed by Daleks in the year 2000, and that's where Susan Foreman is living his granddaughter. But yet in 2005, Rose Tyler is running away from Autons in a normal Earth. Who the fuck knows what's going on here?
Oh, yeah, it's timey-wimey big ball of stuff. They've covered it. But Sutekh is watching on as the Doctor breaks through his door, and he's very unhappy about that fact. And he's like, hey, you know, you got to go deal with those guys, dude. And we see a lot more of Sutekh in this episode than we have in previous episodes. And I really like his costume. I like his mask. I like his weird robes. I like his little red gloves that he's got going on there. That's cool. I dislike that he just sits around.
Yep.
I mean, that's the problem in the series 1 as well, isn't it? He just sits around and talks, and then is instantly beaten the second the confrontation happens.
Mm-hmm. At least here, there's a reason for him being just sitting
he's
around,
like trapped.
because he's trapped. He's glued to
Well,
the chair.
well,
like
there was a reason in season 1. He was so confused by Ruby's plot. Yeah, he was like, "This doesn't make any sense. I gotta see what's going on here. This doesn't matter." Like,
I don't understand how Russell T Davies wrote that plot. Oh, she points to a sign that wasn't even in the episode, and that confused Sutekh so much that he decided to come out and fuck off. It woke him up. What the fuck are you talking about? What the actual fuck?
It's really good. It's really solid writing, and I hope you're ready for, like, I don't know, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, for people on Twitter, if Twitter is still around in 3 years from now, to say, actually, this was excellent writing, and you're an idiot for saying otherwise. As they were doing with Flux.
One thing about Sutekh in this episode or story is the guy in the costume is actually Gabriel Wolf, the actor providing the voice as well, which is fucking bizarre because Gabriel Wolf is he still is alive. He is a guy who usually does like BBC radio plays and shit like that, you know. He's not a guy who's in front of the camera so often, you know. He's a voice guy. So why the fuck did they decide to just bring him in, put him in a costume and just sit there? It's so bizarre. And apparently when he came in on set, he's like, I don't really know why I need to be here. I could have just given the voiceover, you know. I could have just sat in a corner and just given the voice. But eventually he found that the acoustics inside of the masks, because the mask has a microphone inside of it, and if you listen closer, you might be able to hear him popping his P's and hissing his S's because the microphone is that sensitive. So the microphone is inside the mask, and he says the mask provided interesting acoustics to kind of amplify his voice in an interesting way. So it's interesting.
Sure. Finding
his voice is great for Sutekh. It's such a unique kind of voice for a Doctor Who villain. I enjoy it so much.
I would say it's the only thing that Sutekh's got going for him.
Yes.
Good voice. Absolutely no personality. No threat. Other than everyone says he's a threat. Everyone's like, this guy's so scary. I mean, he's not. But
Gabriel Wolf does give him a bit of personality. You know, he's enjoying himself. He's often like laughing to himself about the situation.
Sure, but
put the doctor
he's
in
like,
shit.
it's like a generic villain. Like, ha ha ha! I'm mad with power, and I'm going to rule the world. Mwah, ha ha ha! You know, I just have no care. I'm not invested in this villain. I don't believe in his plan. I don't understand his plan. And I don't believe that he's the greatest threat the Doctor's ever faced, because I don't see him do anything.
Yeah, because in the modern series, they try to imply he's the greatest threat in the whole world because he kills everyone immediately in episode 2 he's in. Even though you're watching it and like, I know Kate Stewart is going to survive this, so I don't feel threatened by him because I know all these characters are coming back. What the fuck are you playing at?
That was the weird pacing in the final episode. Like, everyone should have died in the penultimate episode before the final, where it's like the cliffhanger, like, oh shit, everyone's dead, rather than opening the episode and be like, oh, everyone died. Okay, interesting way to start.
Yeah, it was such a backwards way of doing it. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's a bizarre series of television, but that's what Doctor Who is now. Doctor Who, you watch it, you're like, why was I excited for this?
Oh god, remember our first impressions of Ruby Sunday? Oh my god, I love her. And then we slowly realize
this is
she's
it.
not really given much of a character arc. She doesn't have any conflicts.
This is
next season, she's only going to be in 3 episodes. Which is like, that's basically her storyline pretty much wrapped up at this point. And I don't see her getting too much to do in these 3 episodes of the show. What else are we going to introduce?
I really hope Millie Gibson has a Karen Gillan style career where she goes on to do great and wondrous things, because she is a phenomenal actor. I absolutely adored her in that role, and she's very funny in real life. Like, her letterboxd is superb. But like, what a shit character. What a terrible companion. She's likable, she's got great chemistry, nothing under the surface. It's the same with the Doctor, honestly. It's I really want Ncuti to, like, I fucking love his performance as the Doctor, but I cannot be like he's one of the best ever, because there's nothing there yet. What made Capaldi so compelling is the depths and the arc his Doctor went on. Same with Matt Smith. Like, Matt Smith changed drastically through David Tennant, Eccleston. All these Doctors had arcs. Jodie's Doctor was there. She stood around while people talked at her and told her about her past, I guess. Which is one of the faults of that. Not the faults for Jodie, but for one of the faults from her Doctor, from a writing perspective, is that there wasn't that depth to her. She was trying to unravel this mystery, but it never really felt like she cared about the mystery to begin with. And that's, if you look at a classic Doctor Who, maybe you don't need it. There's no mystery or depth to Tom Baker's Doctor. He's just kind of Tom Baker's Doctor. He's like a weird man. He opens his eyes a lot, and has a big grin. But I want a bit more when it comes to modern Who.
Especially when it's, Russell fucking T Davies. Like, he's the guy who introduced this emotional depth in the first place in the show. Remember series 1 where one episode Rose Tyler goes back in time to meet her dad. And then in the series final, it comes up in a conversation between her and Jackie inside of a TARDIS, and Jackie runs away crying because she just can't handle this emotion. That's a scene in the final, whereas in the final of season 1, the Shudigatwa season, all the emotional beats just feel empty. There's no emotional beats that I really felt, oh, I'm really saddened by this, I'm gonna cry. They're just empty.
I think it's just a modern TV problem. I don't remember what they were talking about. I was reading this post on Twitter, maybe it was Doctor Who, but they were talking about how, like, maybe it was even JJGG on Twitter talking about how, like, it's really nice to see scenes breathe and just watch 2 actors act out a scene and perform a scene and allow the scene to have an impact on both the character and the audience watching it. And I always go back to the scene in Space Babies with Ncuti and Millie, where he's like rapid firing, like, this is a time machine, this is your mom, here's your phone, boom, 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 and doing everything in like 5 seconds, and comparing that to the end of the world in series 1 with Eccleston, and it's like 5 minutes, and the difference between those it's night and day. Where it's like, oh, this is a scene where you can act and breathe and allow the events to impact you, and if they impact you, they will impact us because we're watching it. Just checking off a list is not the same sort of thing.
I do wonder if this kind of shit is because we are currently in like a generation where every kid nowadays is consumed by TikToks and Mr. Beast and fast-paced content that grabs your attention. It keeps on grabbing your attention.
See, I don't like to play the generational card where it's like, you damn kids, because I genuinely think if you were to present, like, if you were to sit somebody down and show them these those two scenes in the episodes on TV, they would prefer the episode with Eccleston because they're like, oh, that had an impact on me. But I think the problem is people don't watch TV. People watch TV through clips that they see on their phone through things like TikTok and stuff like that. So, this 30-second clip we have of the Doctor delivering exposition at rapid fire, that's an excellent social media clip. We can post that on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and get 1 million views, and people will be like, oh, wow, I love Doctor Who. This show seems so cool. Rather than trusting your audience to show up in the first place to watch TV because there's nothing else they're doing. You know, like, you have to compete with so much now with streaming service, video games, like live streaming things, podcasts, there's just everything. There's like 1 billion things of everything. And how do you break through the noise? You know, I mean, that's the problem that we've had for the centuries that we've been doing this podcast. How the fuck, how do we break through the noise?
You know, at least we're having fun doing this podcast. I enjoy meeting with you every week to discuss my favorite show, even though most of the time I complain about my favorite show. Like here,
that is enjoying it. That's how I enjoy things. I enjoy things by saying it's bad, actually.
I do wonder what would happen if you just put up, you know, a TikTok clip of Tom Baker wandering through the woods for 30 seconds, just in complete silence with some weird techno music going on in the background.
Maybe 1 million views.
Be the reaction.
Million views. But yeah, like how would you? That's an excellent point, though. How would you make a TikTok of Pyramids of Mars Part 3? There's no TikTokable scenes, is there? There's no social media postable scenes.
You'd have to do like one of those fan cams where it's like
lots of fast
hyper
edits.
music and fast edits and zooms on the faces and
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. But anyway, back to the episode.
Speaking of JJ, I have seen people recommend that she should go back. You know, this is to give context in case people are listening to this in the year 2028 or whatever. Currently,
or they're just not on Twitter. So many people aren't on Twitter anymore. Like we just have severe problems.
Currently, there is a Twitter user called JJ. She has currently been going through the Matt Smith era. She's finished the Matt Smith era in a fast amount of time. Like, Jesus Christ, it took her like less than a month to go through the entire series. That's insane to me. But yeah, she started off enjoying House of the Dragons. I guess she got a huge crush on Matt Smith. Don't blame her, to be honest. And then she's like, oh, I've heard about this Doctor Who show.
He's a bit of a weird-looking guy, but...
I'm going to check out Matt Smith on his Doctor Who show. She fucking enjoys Doctor Who, and she tweets her reactions to every single episode of the Matt Smith era. Now she's on the Capaldi era, which she also has a huge crush on, apparently. So she's enjoying herself.
Yeah, it's been honestly a wholesome time. It's like the one wholesome thing happening on Twitter right now, minus everyone trying to spoil things in the comments. But like the official Doctor Who Twitter page replied, Stephen Moffat replied. Like Stephen Moffat
Rachel
showed up
Talalay.
to one of her live chats that she did.
I saw that, yeah.
Insane.
And apparently, I think he showed up as she was being critical of something. Which is fascinating, but. Yeah, I guess even Matt Smith would know about her. I guess Stephen Moffat would have texted Matt Smith by now.
Yeah, maybe.
This girl on Twitter fucking loves you. Like, that's gotta be good. But yeah, I wonder what her reaction to classic Doctor Who would be. I am very curious. What would happen if he just threw her the Sea Devils or something like that?
I don't know. I think you'd really have to cherry pick some episodes to
definitely.
be like, these are episodes that you might enjoy that are kind of worth watching. Like Caves of Androzani and stuff like that.
Yes.
But
Caves is still the best episode of Classic Who we've covered because it feels more like modern Who. Like that episode is so fast paced, and the direction in that episode is wonderful.
Yeah.
I think she would love that episode.
But if you were to give her, like, what the fuck was that episode with Sylvester McCoy on the ice planet?
Dragon Fire.
Yeah. I don't think she's getting through that one. That's brutal. But anyway, the Doctor, back to Pyramids of Mars, the Doctor and Sarah Jane go into a little hunting shack where Sarah Jane gives us a really quick Egyptology lesson where there's like 700 gods or something like that for some reason. Yeah, just so there's a test at the end of the episode.
But I guess people in the 60s, like our last generation, who would have fucking learned stuff about Egypt in school, because I don't think I ever touched that topic in history class.
I know they brought it back. I never did Egypt when I was in school, but I have a younger sister who's 6 years younger than me. And I remember she did it when she was in primary school. She covered Egypt.
Right.
So, they change curriculums around. Egypt comes into vogue, comes out of vogue. I don't really remember if any information is really given in this hunting cabin that's worthwhile.
Yeah,
I don't really believe it is.
There's a fun back and forth where Sarah Jane throws the gelignite towards Tom Baker, and Tom Baker's like, be careful with this. One false sneeze
that
could
is a
fucking
fun scene,
blow up
yeah.
the entire shack. We must say that, of course, as always, Elizabeth Sladen and Tom Baker are just wonderful together. They have great chemistry. They're like siblings almost. They're always getting on at each other, and it really fucking works. I really like their chemistry together.
They are. I don't know if this is the best episode to showcase it. I feel like they've been better together in other episodes we've covered. But this whole Sarah Jane dropping down that package and it being like a really highly explosive bomb thing, possibly my favorite scene in the whole episode. And it's like a nothing scene. But I remember watching it and being like, oh, that's charming. It's fun. It's a cute misdirect where Sarah Jane is like, whoop, and it's like, oh shit, this is like super dangerous though.
That's one thing that could have fucking improved the episode. Write more Sarah Jane and Doctor scenes. Have them interact more. Have them bicker a bit more.
Walk around in silence. Just walk around. We then cut to the brother with the mustache, who is just undressing the robot that he was okay, and then we go away again. So and then we get that bomb scene that we talked about earlier. We see that the possessed brother is hunting down the Doctor and Sarah Jane, which eventually leads him back into the original house with his brother and the undressed robot in it, and which his brother comes out and he's like, oh my god, brother, is that you? Are you really there, Lawrence? This is me, your brother Lawrence. Are you there? And he tries to break through to him, and you think for a moment that he has, because the guy like recalls some memories, and then he's like, no, actually, I'm Sutekh, and I'm gonna murder you now. And I thought it was really well done. It's very hammy. It's very hammy acted. But I liked the kind of nightmare of that possessed guy. Like if you're possessed by Sutekh, but you can still recall your previous memories, and be like, oh yeah, I do remember that. But oh wait, hang on, no, actually I'm evil, and it reminded me of something I was watching. What the fuck was I watching? Oh my god, I don't remember. I was watching something. Maybe it was Doctor Who. It was Doctor Who. I was watching Doctor Who. I was on the my flight back from Switzerland. I had downloaded some episodes of Doctor Who to watch on the plane, and I was watching Asylum of the Daleks, Series 7,
Jesus.
Episode 1. Really good episode. I really enjoyed it.
That's not an episode I remember fondly.
Oh, wow. It has some weird issues, like, the whole divorce angle with Rory and Amy is a bit weird, and has a really quick and sudden resolution. But there's some fun little horror parts in it, and I like the twist with not Clara, but Clara at the end with the whole she's a Dalek thing.
Curly dimple face, what JJ calls her.
Yeah. But there's a scene in it because this is the episode where like people can be like possessed by Daleks and they have like the eye come out their head, where the Doctor is like talking to one of those people, and he's like, hey, you used to have a family and stuff like that, and can you ever access those memories to get back to the real you? And the lady's like, yeah, I can access those memories whenever I have to go undercover, and I can just pretend to be the person that I was, and then I forget them again. And he's like, oh, well, you had kids, And she's like, oh, yeah, no, I know I had kids. I read my file. And it's just that, like, horror of losing who you are and becoming this monster, and then looking at yourself as if you're, like, a character to play. And I don't know, I was just thinking about it. I was like, God, that's terrifying. But yeah.
But yeah, the two brothers in this scene do a great job of acting the scene out. Apparently the actor playing Marcus in this scene, the villain, wasn't happy with the first take, so he decided to ask Paddy Russell to have another take. Very rare to get a second take, unless something goes seriously wrong, But because he was such a well-regarded actor at the time, she was like, yeah, sure, I'll give you a second take. And it shows that he took the material seriously, because, you'd expect most actors to kind of turn their nose up at Doctor Who being a silly kids show.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a decent scene. I just fucking wish I cared a bit more about the brothers. If I was to be tasked with a novelization of this story, I would personally do these like mini chapters where we explore these brothers throughout the decades. This is when when Marcus turns towards his pursuit of Sutekh, and the other guy is just trying to save him, and the death scene. I would have his last thoughts be, oh, I wish there was something I could do to save him, and then snap.
Yeah. And you got to make sure you have a scene when they're kids, and the older brother is like, I promise I'll never be possessed and murder you, Lawrence. I promise that'll never happen. And then as he's murdering Lawrence, you flash back to that scene, just so we can remember that happened.
But the actor playing Marcus is 52, and the actor playing Lawrence is in his late 30s, as we've said.
That's insane, because the actor playing Lawrence looks the same age.
So I'm interested in this guy playing Lawrence because he's played by Michael Sheard, who was born in Aberdeen. 1938. He would later become well known for being the head teacher or a teacher. I never watched Grange Hill, so I don't know who he played, but he was in Grange Hill anyway. And he played Hitler 5 times throughout his life, most notably in Indiana Jones. And of course, this might sound familiar to you because we've discussed him just last year in Remembrance of the Daleks. He plays a teacher in that episode who, I think he gets mind controlled. He gets mind controlled by the little girl or Davros. I can't remember, because the little girl stood in for Davros for a little bit. Remember?
I don't remember the intricacies of that plot, but I remember there was the weird little girl with lightning powers or something.
Yeah.
And
she was Palpatine. That's one of our thumbnails. She's Palpatine.
Yeah.
He's also in an episode of Taking Over the Asylum, which is a Scottish series starring David Tennant, a very young David Tennant in like 1998 or something, like one of his first major roles. And one of his things he's sad that his death in the episode was off screen, because he would have liked, to be actually murdered on screen rather than just off screen. You can see the hands going towards his neck or whatever. Then the camera cuts, and when we come back to him, he's just dead. So he's sad he didn't get to do his death scene, which, yeah, I'd be sad too.
Sure, yeah, it's a kid show. You can't show that much violence, but yeah, no, I get it. Plus, it's not like they were short on time for this episode. They could have easily shown it and still had just as many walking scenes.
Yeah.
So the episode continues on, and I'm gonna probably like ramp my way through the remaining 15 minutes of this episode, because it's a lot of walking around in silence and it's a lot of going back and forth, and it's really to do one thing. The Doctor and Sarah Jane plant a bomb. They plant a bomb, and then they're like, how are we going to detonate this bomb? I don't know. So they go back, they leave the bomb there. And then back in the house, they discover the dead brother. The Doctor does not give a shit about this. It's actually a really good scene where Sarah Jane is like, sometimes you don't act, and the Doctor's like, what, human? Because, of course, the Doctor is not a human. If this is your first ever time watching Doctor Who.
And then he makes the point of, this is one dead human versus millions of potential dead humans. We have to focus on the task at hand, which is what we've just kind of went over with the last series of Torchwood we did, with what Jack does at the end of Children of Earth, which I won't spoil here in case you haven't seen it. Fucking fantastic series. We just covered it. Torchwood, Children of Earth. Great time. But Jack makes a decision based on one human versus all the humans, essentially. And it's the same thing with Doctor here. It's a very interesting way to look at things, and I wish it was expanded a bit more, It could have been expanded a bit more. Rather than just this one scene, essentially.
One scene and then like 3 seconds of dialogue where you can latch on and be like, oh wait, that was something. And then the rest of the episode continues on where they dress the Doctor up like a mummy. There's a fun little comedy bit here with Sarah Jane where she's like, it must have been a terrible accident that this happened. Then they remember that they have a gun. They could shoot the bomb, that'll act as a detonator. Perfect. While this is going on, we also see possessed brother with possessed by Sutekh brother dictating some mummies to move some boxes and some things around. This takes forever and goes nowhere. As the Doctor's like, okay, I'm gonna go plant the bomb dressed as a mummy. You make sure you don't miss your shot, Sarah Jane. Sarah Jane's like, of course I won't miss my shot. I'm an ace shot. I'm excellent with a gun. Apparently, which is a character trait I didn't know about Sarah Jane. She's a sharpshooter.
We'll get to that in a few minutes.
While the Doctor goes off to plant the bomb, we get some more instructions from the possessed guy, being like, hey, do you want to put this in the pyramid? That would be pretty cool if you put this in the pyramid for me. While Sarah Jane continues to watch on, and this goes on and on and on and on and on.
Firstly, we have to talk about Tom Baker. Actually, Tom Baker is actually in the mummy costume on location here, and he was very unhappy to be wearing this costume, which I don't fucking blame him, because the rest of the mummy actors are already struggling to walk around in these costumes. We're always tripping and stuff. And you put your main actor inside the costume where he could also trip over. Potentially, he could fracture his ankle or something. I mean, he'd ruin the entirety of the next story because Tom Baker has to walk around on crutches, Like, that's dangerous shit, but it is the fucking 70s, I guess. That is...
Yeah.
all health and safety out the window. It's because Tom Baker has a distinctive walk, according to Paddy Russell, and children would recognize if it wasn't Tom Baker inside of the costume.
I don't understand why you would go through the hassle of sticking Tom Baker inside the mummy costume when you already have about 3 actors in mummy costumes that can fit the role and save time and save money and, you know, save hassle, keep everyone happy. They're already in the costume anyway. And the walk, I honestly assumed that's what they did. I didn't even, I would never have thought in a million years that Tom Baker was in that costume, because why the fuck would you put Tom Baker in that costume? It doesn't make any sense.
So apparently on the day they were shooting this scene, children from a nearby school went to visit them on set. They were very disappointed to find Tom Baker inside of a mummy costume. So the next day, Tom Baker had an afternoon off, because I guess it was all Liz Sladen's job or the mummy job or whatever. And then Tom Baker was like, hey, I'm just going to visit this fucking school dressed up as a 4th Doctor. Why not? And so he gave the school a nice visit, which is lovely. Tom Baker fucking loved the kids in the best possible way anyone could love kids. Tom Baker just loved being a hero to be worshipped by these little children. Like, he just fucking adored it, which is wholesome.
Who doesn't want to be treated like a god? We get... There was a scene I skipped over with the possessed guy talking with Sutekh, where Sutekh gives him a cylinder. I don't remember what the cylinder is for. The pyramid.
This cylinder is going to be transported
blah,
to
blah,
Mars.
blah, 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 blah,
Blah, blah, blah, blah.
It's a really long effect shot of the cylinder coming out through the vortex. And it kind of looks okay, I guess.
It's fine. You know, fine.
If it was 3 seconds shorter, I would be more okay with it. But it just lingers that bit where you're like, okay, I get it. It's coming closer. It's still coming closer. But anyway, he takes that and they go out, and Sarah Jane readies her gun to shoot the bomb. She fires.
Yep.
And she hits. And we see a puff of flame, and then the flame goes back in.
Yeah. Which is a cool, decent effect, and also I like the sound effect that goes along with it. It's very 1975, you know. It's kind of cheesy. I like it, though. But here's, again, where there was some kind of tension on set, because Liz Sladen looked at the script and was like, my character has never shot a gun in any episode, and she's never indicated that she's a good shooter. What if she misses the first shot? And Paddy Russell was like, no. We need to have Sarah Jane make a perfect shot the very first time. And Liz Sladen is like, it just does not make sense for this character. Why would she be able to make the shot the first time? So, of course, you know, Liz Sladen on the set fires the gun, and then she can't hear anything. She's completely shocked to find out she can't hear anything, because nobody had warned her that firing the gun would make her deaf for a couple of minutes. Nobody fucking warned her, and she's just sitting there, looking at everybody, moving their mouths, not hearing anything, and she's like, she's completely panicking, because she's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, how do you not warn your main actress that she's going to be temporarily deaf? Why would you put her in that position in the first place?
Why would you have a gun that's firing something that loud? Like, when just have a fake gun and go bang.
It makes no sense. It's so bizarre, and you know, she's panicking. I don't blame her for panicking.
Yeah, I kind of love the little character tidbit that Sarah Jane is a sharpshooter, though.
Just out of nowhere.
Never talks about it. Never really brings it up. But it's like I can shoot someone from a mile away in between the eyes. Yeah, it's bizarre. It is bizarre, but it doesn't matter anyway because the gun did nothing because they stopped the explosion because Sutekh uses his mind powers to stop the explosion, which they just say something power in this episode to explain away anything.
Pyramid
you
power,
know?
mind
Pyramid
power,
power, mind power,
puppy power.
And this upsets Sutekh quite a bit because he's like, hey, it's costing me a lot of energy. Go and get rid of this bomb-possessed guy because this is exhausting for me to do. So he goes off to go do that. And while he does that, the doctor sneaks in and then climbs in to the vortex to go see Sutekh.
Which is interesting because the possessed brother walks into the building as Tom Baker is still inside the pyramid rocket, right?
How does he get the mummy costume off so quickly?
That's my point. He gets the mummy costume off very quickly, and also he pretty much arrives inside the building at roughly the same time as the brother as well, even though he just had this conversation with Sarah Jane on the side. Like, I don't... Teleportation power.
Teleporting. It's not the first time we've seen teleportation in Doctor Who. Was it the second Doctor episode was it the one with the evil Doctor that people started teleporting around?
Yeah, that episode got pretty bad with its geography.
Characters just go where they need to be.
It's like the final season of Game of Thrones. The first 7 seasons build up. If we need to go here, it's going to take us 12 months essentially. I mean, suddenly in the final season, we're like, hey, I'm going to be there in 5 minutes.
Yeah, see you soon.
A show I've only seen a season and a half of, but I just know it through. The first season is okay, and then I started season 2 just as the final season was about to premiere.
Oh wow!
And then I'm a slow watcher, so I'm watching this second season. I've reached like episode 5, and then everybody's like, "Oh, this final is fucking awful," and I'm like, I don't enjoy this show that much to sit through this many seasons and get to a very bad ending, so I'm just going to drop it here. I watched the first season and a half though. So
Game of Thrones started in 2011. I probably watched it for the first time when I was like 13. So like season 3ish, and then after I caught up, I then watched every season as it released, week by week, following along, listening to podcasts, listening to review people, breaking down analysis. I was super into Game of Thrones, and that final season is dog shit. It has made me not want to revisit that show.
I probably watched the pilot episode in 2014, 2015, something around there, with my mum.
Cool.
A very
cool show to watch
awkward,
with the family.
a very awkward thing to do. It was around the incest scene where we both basically turned to each other and was like, maybe this isn't a show that we should watch together.
Let's go into our separate rooms and watch this.
And then obviously I didn't pick up Game of Thrones until around about the time the final season premiered, and maybe I need to pick it up again, but
it's not. It's honestly not worth it. Like, it's got some of the best TV ever made, some of the most incredible battle scenes ever put to camera, and that final season undermines all of it. It's quite. Like, watch all of it except that final season and just accept there's no conclusion. Because honestly, like Battle of the Bastards and things like that, like just incredible battles and incredible action set pieces, and character stuff is superb. It's honestly such a good show until it's suddenly not.
That's what I keep on hearing. That I hear House of the Dragon season 1 was good and season 2 isn't as good, but who knows. I already know what happens to Matt Smith's character, and
I assume he dies. It's a Game of Thrones show.
Yeah. Which I think is why JJ decided to jump over to Doctor Who in the first place, because she was missing Matt Smith.
Fair, that is fair. So the Doctor arrives in Sutekh's house, and his arrival, I'm guessing, distracts Sutekh, which causes the bomb to explode.
Yeah,
Because
what happens here is Sutekh tells the Scarman brother to go out and retrieve the bomb, the detonator that was crudely put in there, and he goes out and then the device just explodes. And does he die? I guess he dies. Maybe I don't. No, he doesn't die. He's in the next episode. I don't care.
He should die. He's right next to the explosion.
Yeah.
He is standing next to it when it goes off. But yeah, I guess he survives that. But then the Sutekh sees the doctor and shines a bright light in his face, and the doctor is like, ah! And that is
the
how
doctor
the
is in
episode ends.
the pyramid.
Yes.
Yeah, the doctor walks into the pyramid first with red light, and then Sutekh's eyes start glowing green as he's about to do whatever he does to the doctor, which is interesting because you would think green when he walks in and then red with the eyes. Red eyes makes more sense to me than green eyes, but it's just
It's a subversion of expectation.
But I do like the lighting. You know, the lighting is interesting here. It's good greens and reds. I like color.
That's a good sentence.
But yeah, do you want to start episode 4?
I guess we can finish Pyramids.
We're having a great time
of
here.
Mars. I'm not a fan of this story. The more we go into it, the less I like it. But let us look at part 4, the final of Pyramids of Mars.
You are a Time Lord.
I renounce the Society of Time Lords. Now I'm simply a traveler.
In time and space. In time and space. Approach closer. What are you called, Time Lord?
Doctor.
I offer you an alliance, Doctor. Serve me truly, and an empire can be yours.
Serve you, Sutekh. Your name is abominated in every civilized world. Were that name be said, Satan said off.
Serve me, Doctor.
Never!
You pit your puny will against mine. Kneel.
No!
Kneel before the might of Sutekh. In my presence, you are an ant, a termite, a base yourself, you groveling insect.
Episode 4 of Pyramid of Mars begins.
It's called Pyramids of Mars, but every character refers to a single
Pyramid
of
Yeah.
Mars, which is very strange.
Although it is strange because when they actually go to the pyramid, Sutekh refers to it as the main pyramid, implying there are other pyramids. But yeah, no, who knows? But we are at long last on the final episode of Pyramids of Mars, and we haven't covered Classic Who in a while.
Yeah,
and
the last time we covered Classic Who was the War Games, which also had pacing problems.
Yeah, I it's a consistent problem whenever we go to class. Every now and then we get one that's like pretty banging and doesn't have that many pacing issues, but more often than not, if we're covering some Classic Who stories, it's like, wow, this took a long time. Which, when you've only got 20 minutes an episode, and it somehow is taking long for you to do stuff, then it's an interesting one. But we could talk all day about the weird pacing issues in this, and quite often we do. But anyway, episode 4 begins, and it opens up with a really strong scene. Obviously, we get our little recap scene plays before, where we go into the Doctor gonna die and stuff like that. Then he doesn't die because Sutekh's like, actually, I don't feel like it. I don't want to. It seems like a lot of work. Just lets the Doctor
he
live.
basically just falls asleep here. It's like the
He
most.
does. He's like, I'm bored though.
It's just like the worst way to resolve your cliffhanger. Immediately, 1 second later, he's like, no, you're fine. You can go.
Yeah,
off.
I don't
It's
care
fine."
though. Yeah.
But yeah, Sutekh is basically interrogating the Doctor in this scene, discovers he's a Time Lord, blah, 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 blah. It's pretty...
It's
fucking... He makes the point of being like, yeah, I'm just fucking toying with you, Doctor. You are my prey. I'm just like... like a cat with a mouse, you're just playing around with the Doctor for a little bit. It's fun. It's, it's like, yeah, I could destroy every fiber of your body right now, but I don't want to unless you keep fucking around with me.
I think it's a really good scene, and it leads into this, like, the Doctor calls him evil, and you get the classic, like, I'm not evil. What's evil to you, to me, is good. And I love death and whatever.
And your evil is my good is a reference to the John Milton's poem Paradise Lost, where Satan says, "Evil be thou my good," which is, it's a poem I've never fucking heard of, but it's a famous quote.
But it is a really good scene. It is some really good dialogue, and it's well performed. I think. Yes. Everyone, both Tom Baker and the man who plays Sutekh, whose name is just not in my head. Gabriel Wolf, what a name. They're both doing excellent in their respective roles. I almost wish the whole episode was just them two chatting, and this is where I come in, and I'm like, I like it when people talk about stuff and morals, and I would love it if the Doctor and Sutekh just had a debate about good and evil, and perspective, and the idea of an immortal being, God, who surely is above mere mortals, having to converse with a quote-unquote mortal in the Doctor, and come down to their level. I think that that's fascinating. I think that that's incredible. And I think the two of them are strong enough actors that they could pull it off. I don't think the script is strong enough where the dialogue would perhaps pull it off. But that is what I would love this episode to be. Just a acting performance of, hey, you're the god of evil. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I know. And it makes sense for a budget kind of thing. You have limited sets. This episode has no exterior shooting because they used up all of their money, they used up all their time for the first 3 episodes. So this is all studio based. Why not just have a conversation between the two of them that lasts 10 minutes at the most? That's plenty of intrigue. Maybe it's a bit too long for the younger audiences, but fucking better than watching people fucking
fuck them. What do they know? What do they fucking know? I'll beat them up.
But it is interesting that you do say that, because I've already done my homework for the next episode we're going to be covering, which is the Davros 2-parter, Series 9, the Capaldi era.
Oh, nice.
And that's also an episode where I'm like, this could have just been an episode where it's Peter Capaldi and Davros just having a conversation about their different ideals.
Yeah.
Instead, we're wasting time with the whole thing with Clara inside the Dalek, but we'll get to that. I've got a lot to say about that episode. But yeah,
I haven't seen it since
this
it aired.
is what I fucking want. Of course, the Doctor refers to him as basically being like Satan. You have all kinds of different names. You're basically Satan. This is the line that Russell T Davies heard when he was casting the Beast in the Ood 2-parter in Series 2. That's why he cast Peter Gabriel, because perfect voice. He's basically already like a Satan character. Why not have him basically be kind of like from the same tree almost? So that makes sense. We're kind of like the Toymaker and Maestro. We're kind of from the same family almost.
Yeah, they're these weird god beings that just kind of exist in the universe. And I'm hesitant to say the Ood 2-parter is better, but I kind of think it is. The Satan Pit or whatever it's called.
It's an episode I haven't seen in a long time. Maybe we should put it on the list.
Yeah,
soon.
I watched it last year, because I've been going through Modern Who again, so it's relatively fresh in my memory. The effects do not hold up. at all.
Yeah, like a
but-
PS2 cutscene. Right?
yeah. But it famously, I think, was the first episode of Doctor Who to give me nightmares. So nightmares that have been ingrained in my brain. I don't really remember. It's like I don't really remember my dreams or my nightmares. That one I have not forgotten, and it has been with me since I had it.
Famously, it's the first Doctor Who episode I missed live since I began watching
Wow.
it. I think the first episode aired, I was at a restaurant. My nan and granda took me out to a restaurant, and I missed the episode. I think it was playing on TV at the restaurant, and I'm like, I can't watch this. I don't want to be spoiled. Can I please be seated so I'm not facing the TV, please?
What
And
a
then the next
weird-
week, my friend came over, and he kept on talking the entire time we were watching the episode, so I missed most of the episode, which was fun.
Brutal.
I really was so pissed off.
Yeah. No, I just remember being I've talked about it on the podcast before, but I'll briefly talk about it again. Is I'm getting chased by the evil Ood. The evil Ood and their red eyes are chasing me through the Satan pit, and we're climbing up the fire escape ladder. I look down, and the Ood suddenly has a skull for its face. Then I wake up. That's it. That's the dream. That it's not even that scary, but it's just like ingrained in my brain, where I'm like, God, that was like one of the scariest dreams I ever had. But yeah.
Oh, I've had 2 Doctor Who nightmares in my life. One where I'm being tied down by the Cybermen, about to be converted, terrifying. And another one where I'm at my nan's house and the Daleks are kind of storming through the streets. And I'm like, I've got to close these curtains so the Daleks don't look in and sees me. And when I close the curtain, I start closing the curtain and a Dalek flies by and we're like, exterminate. And I'm like, ah! So yeah, I almost died in 2 of them. They were very quick dreams, but they felt so fucking real at the time.
That's it. They feel it's the same with the Ood one. Like, it's such a short, quick thing, but it felt so real. But I love that's one of the things what you love about Doctor Who, isn't it? But yeah, the scene with Sutekh I think is really good. And it's maybe one of the only good scenes in this episode, because after this, the whole episode slows right down. Because the Doctor gets possessed by Sutekh. He's like, actually, I'm in charge of you, and I have your TARDIS key, so I'm going to use you to fly the TARDIS so that I can escape.
Because the Doctor is the only person who can pilot the TARDIS, even though, in future episodes we find out. But anyone can fucking
Don't worry
pilot
about
the
it.
TARDIS. It's not just the Doctor, but whatever.
The
Doctor lies, which is
yeah.
which is a shit Moffat thing for plot holes. That just fills up all the plot holes. Any inconsistencies, the Doctor is lying. Great time.
It is a get out of jail free card for sure. Like timey-wimey, it is a get out of jail free card. But I think Doctor Who is one of the few shows where you need get out of jail free cards. But yeah, they take them back through the vortex, and everyone slowly clambers into the TARDIS, and then slowly clams out of the TARDIS.
Yeah. So I need to walk you through this. So they walk very slowly to the TARDIS.
Yes.
And then the Doctor walks in. And then everybody else just sort of stands there for like 5 seconds, just awkwardly, just standing there waiting for the director to shout cut, because there's nothing going on. Because obviously only Tom Baker can actually fit inside the prop, because it's not bigger on the inside. I'm sorry to ruin the illusion,
What?
but it's...
What do you mean? It's the TARDIS.
and apparently at the time they would use the TARDIS prop as a convenient bin, so they would just chuck like apple cores in there and all kinds of shit in there, so it's all disgusting and just smelling. But yeah,
That
they
upsets
go,
me.
you know,
That genuinely, I don't like that.
I know, but whatever. But yeah, and then we get to the actual set of the interior of the TARDIS. The Doctor just kind of stands there at the console. Everybody else walks in. The Scarman brother pushes Sarah Jane in. And then the Doctor turns around to look at the Scarman brother. Scarman looks at the Doctor. The Doctor turns back around to look at the console. Then we get a shot of Sarah Jane looking concerned at the Doctor. And then we cut to the exterior of the TARDIS going away. And then we cut to the TARDIS arriving on Mars. And then we stand there for a minute. We see the shadow of somebody inside the TARDIS, somebody's head inside the TARDIS. And then the Scarman brother walks out. And then the Doctor gets murdered for a minute, and then it's very slow.
Would you
it's
believe
so
we're
slow.
and would you believe that's 10 minutes of the episode? That
It's shocking. It's shocking. You know, the first 4 minutes is just the Doctor and Sutekh talking, and it's like 4 minutes extra of just very slow stuff going on.
It's brutal. It's brutal and very dull. There's a light bit of comedy when the Doctor wakes up. When Sarah Jane starts crying on him, he's like, "Oh, you're getting my jacket wet. Stop what you're doing," which is fun. A nice little bit of banter.
You know, the last episode had a little bit about the Doctor not appearing human. Maybe just a punch up. Maybe Sarah Jane starts worrying about the fact that, hey, I'm traveling with a guy who has no human emotions. Does he even care about me? Now he's possessed, and then maybe Sarah Jane in this episode could have planned something like run towards the TARDIS console to stop the Doctor from doing it, and then a mummy attacks Sarah Jane, and then the Doctor is like wakes up because he's like, I have to protect Sarah Jane. That's something Sarah Jane could have done because she does nothing in the story. And then we could have just had a little moment where the Doctor cares about Sarah Jane. We see the Doctor actually give a shit. But instead, no. It's just Sarah Jane does nothing but cry.
It's interesting having to decide when the Doctor cares about people, isn't it? Because sometimes he doesn't give a shit, and then sometimes he does. And yeah, I like your idea for sure. I just think if it was modern Who, they would do something like that. But classic Who doesn't characterize as much. Like we see it in Sylvester McCoy's era with him and Ace, where they have that whole arc.
It's fucking insane. But it took them 25 years to really explore the idea of characterization.
We have characters here. We could. What if the characters change?
Like, God, just the fact that they cancelled the show right as they were beginning to realize, hey, characters exist. Oh, wow.
But I guess it's just their perception because, like, it was viewed as a kid show, and kids are simple beings who it's like a Saturday morning cartoon. You come in. This is with the showrunner guy whose name I don't remember. Wanted everyone to be in the same clothes all the time.
So that's John Nathan Turner.
That's it, John Nathan Turner.
Everyone has this identifiable look to them, and
like a cartoon.
It was mostly done throughout the Peter Davison era. I stopped myself from saying Patrick Troughton. But it was mostly done through the Peter Davison era, and then Nicola Bryant, who plays Perry, walked in. Attractive lady, let's dress her up in the most revealing clothes every single week.
Let's get them boobs on TV. Very famous. It was her in
For the Dance.
The regeneration scene. Is it?
Yes.
Is it? Yes.
Yes.
That
Peter Davison says
distracts
her boobs just distracts my acting.
Which they do. They do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, being out acted by a pair of boobs, it's hard to overcome. I don't think anybody could really overcome. Anyway, what's happening in this episode of Doctor Who?
Nothing. That's what. Sutekh brother. No, sorry. The Scarman brother walks into another room and. There's all these weird CSO green screen effects going on in the walls, and It's very 1975.
Oh my god, sorry, I just remembered that we're about to go through the whole goddamn maze puzzle sequence. Oh,
Yep.
fuck.
Yep.
Cool. Well, we'll dive into that in just a few moments.
Can't wait. Yeah, so this sequence from here on, Robert Holmes had no fucking idea how to end the story. He also ran out of money for a location shoot. So this entire episode had to be location based. And Philip Hinchcliffe, who was he was producer at the time. Robert Holmes was, of course, the script editor. So Philip suggested to Robert that the story should end with the Doctor using his intelligence rather than having a scene where he just punches people, you know. There's too much violence as it is in this show. People are complaining. Let's have him use his intelligence. Makes sense. So Holmes took inspiration from Griefer's original draft, which had the Doctor working through a labyrinth in Egypt, and this is the whole puzzle-solving sequence, which everybody loves. You know, even in the cut-down version that we saw earlier this year. Of course, that was the most famous part of the cut-down version. And by that, I mean it was cut down. There was like 2 minutes of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, boring as hell.
It is extremely boring. It's like almost unbelievable how. I like, how do you make it boring? Because you're watching an intelligent man solve complex puzzles. That should be fascinating. It should be like intriguing. But I think it's just the way it's shot. As you said, they ran out of money and stuff, and everything is shot like on this weird effect, sort of swirling screen thing, and it all looks fake as shit, and it looks terrible. And it's just presented, and everything's gray and brown, and it's just presented dully and feels dull to watch and takes so long.
Yes.
It's the rest of this episode is this.
And there's absolutely no tension, even though one wrong move and they could both fucking die. But instead,
you know what it reminds me of?
I was right. Yeah. Well,
it reminds me of the conveyor belt sequence in Attack of the Clones, which was a sequence that was not originally part of the film and was added on afterwards in reshoots to pad out. Like, hey, we need an extra scene here, so let's just have we need another action scene in, so let's just add in this scene that adds nothing and does nothing and is just this silly, goofy, let's run around and do this thing in here and this thing here and this thing here, and you don't really feel anything from it. Like, this is the conveyor belt sequence in Attack of the Clones, 100%.
yes, and it also looks as shit as the conveyor belt sequence in Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the
part
Clones,
of the movie looks fucking awful. I'm
it's
sorry.
okay.
I know you're a huge prequel fan, but
I personally think the dodgy some of the effects in the prequels hold up. Some of them don't, but I think it adds to the style of the prequels. It adds to the certain aesthetic that they have. The same with this. Like, this has got a certain style and a vibe to it. You know, we were talking about bad effects earlier. I can deal with bad effects, and I think it adds a certain feel to something. But for me, the weird, almost digital but not quite effects that they've got going on with the like moving blue screens or whatever, like. Especially that final room where it's like, what is this room? What's happening in here?
The swirling pixels are enough to almost make you nauseous.
Yeah,
it just keeps on going, you know. It's ugly. It's just brown and
it is ugly,
kind of mustard, and you're already walking around on like a brown set. Why add more brown? Why not just red or more interesting colors?
Doesn't feel like they're in a pyramid. Like it feels really open and big and wide, and I feel like it should feel compact and claustrophobic and almost like Indiana Jones. You know, there should be like not cobwebs because you're on Mars webs, and like dust and grime, and there should be like a texture to everything, rather than just a swirling orange ziggy line. but I get
it's-
budget plays into that, you know.
Yeah.
But,
Which is
yeah.
a shame because the actual room Sutekh is in
Oh, looks
does
good.
look good.
Yeah.
You know, there's like purple behind him. The light turns red. The light turns green. It's a decent set. You know, for the limitations, it's decently lit. But
The lighting
rest
is good.
just brown.
Yeah, but yeah, it's dull. There's not really any even notable puzzles that they solve. There's
Yeah.
the truth
I mean-
and lie guy. That's probably the most famous
Yeah,
riddle that they
but-
do.
Yeah, and before we get to the puzzles, the Tom Baker and Sarah Jane do the classic bit where they walk into the room and then immediately walk out, which is inspired by the Marx Brothers. They both actors improved that, which everything that's good about this episode is pretty much improved by Tom Baker or Liz Sladen, almost. But yeah, that's a classic gif. That's one of my favorite Doctor Who gifs.
It's a good one.
With a text saying nope.
Yep. I do like when Sarah Jane gets locked in the tube, and the doctor tells her to relax, and she's just like, "Oh well, yeah." She like kicks back her feet, you know. I think that's that's charming.
The bit where Tom Baker writes "relax" on the glass, also improvised by Tom Baker.
Oh, nice.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the puzzles are just not interesting at all. The special effects are weak, and just everything is taking ages. You know, it's like life or death stuff, and it's just sitting around for 2 minutes solving these puzzles. There's no tension ever. Just
Yeah, it's insane that this is a 24-minute episode. There is maybe 5 minutes of stuff happening in this entire thing, and those 5 minutes of stuff is Sutekh tells the doctor, "I'm gonna kill you, but actually I'm gonna possess you," and then Sutekh's like, "And now I'm ready to stand up." I've been defeated. Oh well, and that's
yeah. So the Doctor and Sarah Jane solve all the puzzles, but the bad guy is in the room with the Eye of Horus, which is just all yellow screen. You know, there's all this swirly lights, mustard and brown.
It looks
and it's
terrible.
ugly. It looks like diarrhea. It looks like somebody's eaten Taco Bell and just smudged it all over the walls.
Don't throw. I like Taco Bell. Don't throw Taco Bell.
I need to give it another try, but the location, the one Taco Bell in our location feels, you go downstairs and it feels like you're in a prison canteen almost.
I've only been in that Taco Bell once, and I every time I walk past it, I'm like, I don't want to go in there.
It feels claustrophobic because you're basically going downstairs into a basement and eating with. There's no windows. And
it's right next to a McDonald's that has a big upstairs and big windows. I'm like, I'll just get a burger. It's fine. But maybe I'll get a Taco Bell next time in Aberdeen. It's been a while.
I need to give it a proper try. I just remember it being a lot of money for very small portions.
It's portion wise, you have to get 2 or 3 different things. It's like you'll get like a quesadilla and a burrito and a side. Rather than just like one set meal. But I what I liked is it didn't feel like I think McDonald's and Burger King and stuff like they're slop. You touch it and it just melts in your hand into slop. Whereas when you pick up Taco Bell, because it's like a wrap or whatever, it stays together and it's like, wow, this almost feels like food.
I'll need to give it another try. I'm not gonna say how long I am away from it.
if you're getting fast food, like Chopsticks is just up the road and significantly higher quality, and his noodles, which is much nicer.
I fucking just tried that for the first time. Like
oh wow, ago. I love Chopsticks.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, they're real good. I
enjoyed it. It's really good. I need to give it another go.
I've been
trying to expand my palate. But yeah,
by
this is
going
the part
to
of the
fast food
episode-
places.
This is the part of the episode where the mummies go crazy and we just start cracking off it, like Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. They're mummies of action, and yeah, there's.
And
I wish
then,
there was more to talk about. I wish there was anything in this. There's a cool shot with the doors. That shot's cool when everyone dies.
And sorry, the Scarman, the possessed Scarman, stands there, and his head is replaced with a dog. The actor actually had to stand there for like 10 minutes.
Got his head
And
really
everything's just-
replaced with a dog. Yeah.
Yeah, and he had no fucking idea what was going on. He was just standing there, trusting the director and all that. He's like, "Can I move now? What's going on?" It's completely silent on set as everybody's huddled across the room, like huddled over a monitor, just trying to get this effect working. Because obviously we're doing it live, which is absolutely insane when you only have like a 2.5 hour window to shoot an entire episode. That's fucking mental to think about. And just this actor is just standing there for 10 minutes as we're doing the effect live. And it's not a bad effect, but it's like...
It looks, the effect itself looks good. It's the actual head of the dog that I hate. Like the actual, like we talked about it in last week's episode. It does not look good.
Yes, but something happens and then the guy falls over and then he just dies. So
He just combusts. He just turns to ash and then vanishes. It feels really cheap. It feels like a really sudden, cheap way of getting rid of him. But I guess he's done now. Why did he even need to come into the pyramid? Why did Sutekh? I guess he just was tagging along in the TARDIS. But like,
I guess he needs to get to the Eye of Horus. And
why?
To release Sutekh because he has to do it physically while in the building.
I guess. Yeah. Okay.
It's a really thin plot. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
I think I finally figured it out.
Calling it a plot is even, being generous. It's like a series of events.
And then Sutekh starts monologuing to himself. I don't care at this point. And then fucking he stands up, and of course the famous hand is there keeping the chair.
Maybe that's the hand of Horus. Maybe that's Horus's hand, and it's a metaphor for how Horus no longer has power to keep Sutekh down. No, it's definitely just a stagehand.
Yes. And of course, that hand is kind of famous. It's like a famous Doctor Who goof, which they obviously had to edit that hand out in the modern version that we saw on BBC4 a few months ago, which makes sense. If that kind of thing makes sense to cut out of the episode, to just digitally erase over. It's something I wouldn't have noticed if people didn't point it out, but whatever.
Same. I mean, I might have noticed it if we were covering the episode like this and we're going through like scene by scene, almost frame by frame, then I probably might have noticed it. But if I was just watching this as a casual viewer, or how I normally consume media, I definitely would not have noticed it.
Yeah. But if you fucking look at your BBC iPlayer timeline at this point, he fucking stands up with 3 minutes and 50 seconds left of the episode, which
sure does
is just way too late for him to be free. I feel like we could have done more here, but I can't think of what else we could have done, because once he's free, it's harder to trap him again. You know what I mean? If he's walking around too long,
it's a powers thing. You've got this guy and you're like, he's the most scary, powerful dude ever. And, he can do everything and will destroy everybody the second he gets free. And then you're like, okay, well, let's just not get him free because we want to get the plot, we want to get the characters and the plot done. And then the second he gets free, it's like, okay, we have to get rid of him right away, though, because we've said he's the most powerful, scary thing ever. So, I don't like vague power bosses that don't play into anything, that have no overarching meaning or just power scale. You got to think about your power scale here, because it's establishing a lot and it limits you.
Yeah, again, there's just nothing super interesting about Sutekh. The most interesting thing is he decided to make a pun. Susan Technology. That's his master plan the next time he pops up. Which is fucking ridiculous. But this guy, this god creature is like, yeah, I'm just gonna fucking fuck around and make a pun. Susan Tech, Sutekh, whatever. Fucking dumb.
Yeah, the more time passes between like series 1 airing and just the more time passes from that point, the worse I think it's aging, because the more I think about various things and the more I'm like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Oh, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense.
And I hate being negative about Doctor Who, because I think season 1 was the most I enjoyed Doctor Who since like 2020.
We're always desperate to like Doctor Who, you know?
Yes.
The trailer for Flux comes out, we're like, fuck yeah, let's go. Maybe it's good. First episode comes out, we're like, okay, we're hopeful, we're eager, we're willing to accept stuff. By the end of that, we're like, this is dog shit. Russell T Davies comes back, we're like, fuck yeah, let's go. Season 1 comes out, we're like, what the fuck was Space Babies? But okay, see, episode 2 was way better. I'm glad they dropped both of these at the same time. Maybe this is just to get the bad episode out the way, and then we'll be good. And then by the end of it, we're like, actually, never mind, this was dog shit. I just, you ever think maybe it just isn't made for us anymore?
That's a potential thing, but who's it made for? Who the fuck is it made for?
Who knows? Like I don't know. Maybe 13-year-olds, 10-year-olds. It's something I have to constantly like check myself on. And I was chatting with a friend recently who's also on Twitter a lot, and I was having to be like, hey, like a lot of these like weird opinions and bad takes you're seeing on Twitter, like they're from teenagers that have no brains. They like, when I was most active on Twitter was probably when I was a teenager. Like I joined Twitter when I was 13. What the fuck? Who fucking wants to see a 13-year-old's Twitter posts? Nobody. Yeah. Nobody, but you'll see them.
Yeah, when I was 13, my tweets were like, "Oh, my teacher made the stinkiest fart this morning. It stank of rotten eggs." That's my tweets from when I was 13 years old. And I would be tweeting celebrities being like, "Oh my god, I love you. Please respond to me."
Yeah. Yeah, I usually didn't. I'm not much of a poster. I'm more of a lurker. But yeah.
I don't know who Doctor Who is made for anymore. It's definitely not something.
I don't know.
I
if
still
Doctor
love
Who
Doctor
knows.
Who. I'll say we both love Doctor Who, and it's just not hitting us anymore. But at the same time, who is it hitting? Because it's been almost 20 years since Doctor Who came back. 20 continuous years of Doctor Who. And it's hard for new audiences to engage with the new stuff, because you start off with the 60th anniversary and you're like, who the hell is this guy? Who the hell is this girl? I don't understand what's going on. There seems like there's a lot of context I'm missing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to skip out from this. It's a confusing way to bring back the show, for Russell T Davies to bring back the show for a new audience.
I don't know. I feel like maybe Doctor Who should do like a Dragon Ball type thing, which they kind of do every now and then. Where, like Dragon Ball starts and it's Kid Goku, and then it just continues on, and eventually you get Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super, and the characters just continue to grow. They continue to age. They grow up. We time forward. The audience we were with has grown up. So the characters grow up, and they deal with more mature themes. They have bigger fights. They have more powers, and the show evolves with its audience. Although the new Dragon Ball show that's coming out, everyone's kids again, so fucking who knows. Yeah. You just like murdered your microphone, by the way. Yeah, you banged your desk and now you're coming through your webcam audio. I don't know if it's still recording fine, but
Am I back? I'm back.
Yeah, it's
I'm
back.
Sorry about that. Yeah, my bad. I've got a faulty wire. I still need to get replaced, but it's what the fuck was I saying? Yeah, but that's what Doctor Who did during the 90s. With the Virgin books, we got dark and gothic kind of because Big Finish just recently did a adaptation of one of the books. Goth opera, I think it's called, where everybody's vampires and everybody's murdering each other and there's lots of blood and shit. Oh, your cat. It's just having a nice time. Sorry, I got distracted. But yeah, maybe Doctor Who. Again, when I was 16, I wanted Doctor Who to be dark as possible. Like I think that was when season 9 was on, and then we got a really dark series final, and I'm like, no wait, I think I want Doctor Who to be goofy again. And we got series 10, which was kind of goofy again.
See, I was the same when they introduced Capaldi's era of Doctor Who, and they were like, it's going to be grittier and darker. I was like, oh no, stop! I don't want this. But Capaldi's gone on to become one of my favorite Doctors because I think that tone kind of works really well. But I don't know. I think also the joy of Doctor Who is it's the one show that can continuously reinvent itself if something isn't working. Yeah. And we'll see. We'll just see.
We'll see.
But did we even finish talking about Sutekh?
No, we didn't. And
he tried to escape, but the Doctor went no.
Yeah, we're back in the house, and Tom Baker's like, "Oh, I'm gonna catch you in a trap, and if you ever escape this trap, I'm just gonna do it again.
Just do it again.
It kind of worked the first time. Yeah. And then the house starts burning down, and the Doctor makes a joke about starting the 1666 fire of London, and everybody chuckled in the audience. And he would actually later in the Fifth Doctor era, he would actually start the 1616 fire of London in the Visitation, which is also the episode where he faces off against the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's like 4 turtle dudes. It's very weird. That's also the episode where his sonic screwdriver gets destroyed, which was a good thing for the show because he became over reliant, and it helped the writers solve puzzles better, rather than he can just use a sonic screwdriver. But we're over. That's the end of the episode.
That is the end of the episode. A story that I think people are perhaps remembering with nostalgic goggles. Because everything I heard about this episode before I saw it, I didn't see this episode until the remaster. So my introduction to Sutekh was not the Empire of Death, but the Legend of Ruby Sunday. Which I was like, okay, interesting. This guy seems cool. And then I went and I learned about him. I saw everyone posting about him, how he's one of the greatest villains from the classic Who era. And he's iconic and legendary and scary and memorable. And I was like, fuck yeah, this guy sounds ace. How have I not heard of him before? And I watched the remaster, and I went, that was kind of shit. What? What? And then I watched the Empire of Death, and I thought it was terrible. And
even worse. Even worse.
Yeah. And now we've covered the original 4 parts of the Pyramids of Mars, and the remaster is better. It fixes a lot of the pacing issues, but pacing is not the only issues in this story. This story suffers from a lack of story, and that makes it really hard for me to engage with. It's possibly my least favorite Tom Baker episode we've done. I'm not a fan of this story.
Even worse than The Hand of Fear?
It's been a while since we covered Hand of Fear. Let me look at a thumbnail. What season's Hand of Fear?
God, that was one of our first. I think that was our first Tom Baker story.
Yeah, but what season of Tom Baker's Doctor Who?
Season 14, I believe.
Season 14, The Hand of Fear. Yes, you're correct. Hand of Fear.
It's the one where Tom Baker touches.
Oh, the nuclear power plant. Yeah.
Yes, and Sarah Jane is
Yeah.
walking around the nuclear power plant for like 5 minutes.
You know, I think the Hand of Fear is more enjoyable
Yeah.
from a so bad it's good sort of perspective, you know, where it's like
That's
this
fair,
is
yeah.
lightly dull, especially the like walking around nuclear power plant, but it's goofy. It's a goofy kind of dull. This is kind of just dull. But both episodes aren't good.
Yeah. My first time with this episode was probably in 2008 because UK TV Drama decided to show all the Tom Baker episodes in order. I think I watched every single one, and I have vague memories of every single one. I don't remember much of it because I don't think I was that
2008,
interested in
it
classic
was-
Doctor Who. I just watched it for like completionist sake, you know. I just
Yeah.
watch classic Doctor Who for like I still have Doctor Who to discover. It's new episodes of Doctor Who essentially, and I'm like, oh, this must be important because it's old. That's my thoughts as a kid, and then you're looking back on it, and it's like, this is bad. This is
Yeah.
not good. I don't hate this episode. I think I gave it a 7 out of 10 on Letterboxd. I think I'm being generous there.
I
with my
think you're
7 out of 10.
definitely being generous. I think I gave it a 2 out of 5. And I think I was being generous.
It's not too bad. I don't remember much of it from my first viewing, other than I think the garden and the house. That's all I remember from my mind, and maybe the mummies.
That's like every
all I
scene.
remember.
That's every scene.
It's not the type. It's not the best plot. I would say it's not even a plot. It's like a plot that would have lasted like 14 minutes if it was a normal script, you know.
It's a really good performance from a villain that has no depth. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's a really I think Sutekh is so boring. I find I'm so powerful villains super boring. I like you know, struggles and flaws and philosophy and morals. I don't like all powerful beings. And you know.
I do think I know why Russell T Davies was drawn to this. You know, this episode came out when he was like 12 or 13. That's roughly the age where you start growing out of Doctor Who. But this must have been like the last one where he truly enjoyed it. Without, you know, as you're getting older, you start critiquing things more. This must be like one of the final ones he saw as perfect. This must be the one that he remembered the most because of the performance of the villain and the mummies. There's a lot of iconic images in this episode alone. He must have a lot of nostalgia for this episode, like I do with like series 5 of Doctor Who, which aired when I was 12, you know. And then series 6 came out and I started being a bit more critical of the show. So I think he must have gone through maybe the same route. And
Yeah.
I think I understand. I think that's a lot of the reason why a lot of people are nostalgic about this episode. It's consistently voted like one of the best classic Doctor Who stories, which I don't fucking understand. But okay, it's mostly kind of average for a classic Doctor Who story in my mind. There's nothing terribly wrong about it, apart from the script kind of being boring, which is kind of the worst thing you can give.
That's yeah, I was
thing
gonna
you
say,
can say.
that's like the worst thing for me though. Like boring is the one thing you don't want to be. But yeah, that is Pyramids of Mars. Thank you very much for listening. Next week is the news, apparently.
Yes.
It's not the end of the month, it's the start of the month, but we took a week off, so we're just going to cover the news. I don't think another dry month. No.
Yep.
Yeah, there's nothing happening in the world of Doctor Who at the minute, so fuck knows what we're going to talk about, but that'll be live on our YouTube page, Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast, so be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube to make sure you catch that when it goes live. And after that, we will be looking at The Witch's Familiar and The Magician's Apprentice and revisiting that Capaldi episode, which I'm very much looking forward to. I haven't seen it since it aired, and I remember liking it when it came out. I know you didn't like it.
Yeah, I've always thought it was a bit of a mixed bag,
Yeah.
and you know, like I would say back when I first watched it, like 50% was good, 50% was bad. Now I'm leaning towards the bad. I'm very interested to see your opinion of it. We'll get into it. There's a lot to talk about. It's not boring, I would say. It's not boring like this episode is. I'm very curious.
I'm very much looking forward to that. I love Capaldi. And until then, you can catch us on our YouTube page at Who Watches Who, as I already said, but we're also available in audio form on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. There's an RSS feed where you can plug us into your podcast app of choice, or simply search Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast, into your feed, and we should show up. We drop episodes every Friday at 8 a.m. UK time, usually every Friday, so be sure to keep an eye out for them, and leave a review for the show if you are listening on things like Apple Podcasts and stuff like that. It actually helps boost us to new listeners that might enjoy the show. Recommend us to a friend. Follow us on Facebook at Who Watches Who, at Twitter at Watches Doctor. Subscribe to my gaming channel at Psychedelic Gaming Hobos if you are into dumb stoner comedy. You can also buy my book, Can You Taste the Color Orange, if you're into slightly smarter, absurd comedy. Scott is looking for a copy of my book right now, and he's failing dramatically.
It's underneath a big pile, and I don't want to mess up my audio again, so I'm sorry.
Be sure to buy my book. There's not a lot of copies left on Amazon. I think there's, at the time of recording, 3 copies on Amazon at the minute. So please buy them so it sells out and they have to print more. That would be very nice. I would be the 3rd time that it's sold out. So maybe they should start printing more copies. And until then, I think that's everything I need to cover. We will see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Well, you can also buy it on Kindle.
You can, yeah, it's on digital as well.
Nice.
Anyways,
bye.